Okay, so I was going to do a little thing that I learned from the last one. I liked it so much I'm going to do it anyway, because it was to be a cover for getting it all up and presenting. It's already presenting now, but I really like what the guys did before, so I'm going to do it anyway. So what I'd like you to do is to talk to the person next to you or in a little group, and I just want you to think about, you might, if you don't know what I'm presenting on, just go to your pack and find out what I'm talking about. And then I just want you to just talk for a couple of minutes about what you want to learn from my session. And then what I'm going to do is, at the end of it, if you haven't got the answers to what you wanted to learn about, then you can ask it as a question at the end, and that will be your way of finding a question for me at the end, because I always find that really difficult at the end of a session. There's so much information, I don't know what I want to ask about. But if you think about what you'd like to get from my session, then if you don't get that question answered, then I can answer that at the end. So if you have a couple of minutes to just have a quick chat. Oh, okay. Yeah. You can see me, you can see that as well. It might not work. It's okay. I'll do it for this. Thank you.
Are you doing a video? Are you doing video?
Am I doing no, this is for my hearing.
Can you hear me? Does that make you be able to hear me?
Let me see, I'll hear you, yeah.
Yeah, that does. Okay. Okay, so hopefully you had a little chat. Do you see what I did there? Now you know what I'm talking about. I don't say, okay. No, I'm going to talk on it. So I'm Sonia Hutchison. I'm from the UK, and my paper and this presentation is about a living theory of caregiving. So as I go through, I'm going to tell you a little bit about all of those elements, and also I'm going to talk to you a little bit about sort of where my thinking has gone. So I'm really lucky to be surrounded by some really great action researchers in the UK, and and around the world actually. And it's really nice to meet people here, and some people who I've only known through the internet. So it's been really great to come over to America and meet people in the flesh. So I'm talking about authentic leadership. So my situation in the UK is that I am a chief executive, or I think you call them executive directors here, for a non-profit, so a charity. I'm going to try and translate into American all the things that I do. And so I'm a leader in my organisation. And I wanted to be an authentic leader. And that requires some vulnerability, to be self-aware and to be transparent in relationships with those you lead. So that meant really, I didn't want to be this type of leader or that type of leader. I really wanted to be me as a leader. And that's taken a little bit of time, and it's taken a bit of courage, and it's taken a bit of me having to really get to the root of what my values are to be able to lead authentically. I'm going to talk you through how that process has worked. But before I do that, the last time I did this presentation, I got right to the end and somebody said, "What's a caregiver?" or as we call them in England, carers. So I wanted to make sure before we start, you know who I work with, what my context is. So this is a screen grab from our website. So you can go and have a proper look if you want. It's www.banes, B-A-N-E-S, carerscentre.org.uk. If you want to go and have a proper look, you can ask questions. But what we say on our website is that 1 in 8 of us is a carer. So that's a really big number. And that we're giving time and energy without pay to care for friends or family who can't manage on their own. So really that means that they're playing a vital role, and it could be because that family member has an illness, a frailty, a disability, or problems with drug or alcohol. So then I described this last night at dinner to some people who are American, or Canadian actually, and we got to the end and they didn't really get what I was talking about. So then I reframed that whole conversation. So now I'm going to try and give you an actual example of a carer. So this picture is of Surinder with her daughter Nina. Nina has autism. So Surinder is both her mother, which is the same relationship that every mother and daughter has, but on top of her role as a mother, she has to deal with the special needs that her daughter has. So she takes on this extra role, which is being an advocate for her to have schooling, which is equitable to other children, because there's a tension between wanting to put her into special education because she has autism, but her mum and Nina, in fact, really want to be a normal child, a normal teenager. So she's got this extra role. She's having to fight all the time, really, for her daughter to have that same experience of education that other children get. Nina also has to, Surinder, Nina's mum, also has to fight with other services like social services to get good social workers involved with Nina's care. She's had to fight for her to be, we call it statemented, you might have a different word in America, but to say that she is autistic and that is, and what that means. And so she's not just a mum, she's a carer or a caregiver. So that's what I mean by a caregiver in a parental role. The other thing, because a lot of you are involved in teaching children, I thought I'd talk about what a young carer is, or a young caregiver. So that's when a child, so we work with kids from 5 through to 18, and they're caring for somebody in their family. So let's imagine they're caring for their mum, and they've got physical disabilities. So I'll use an example of a carer I know who's called Mitch, and he cares for his mum who's got a crumbling spine. And so he has to wake up in the morning, make the breakfast, make sure his mum's okay, make sure that she's got out of bed because he knows that she's going to be really unable to do that once he's gone to school. He makes sure that his sister's okay and makes sure that she's also up and out of bed because she has similar problems. And then he goes off to school. When he goes to school, he's not now, but he used to be getting bullied, and he used to be getting, problems from the teachers because he wasn't getting his work done on time, because when he gets back home from school, he has to make sure that his mum's okay, he has to cook the dinner, he has to do some cleaning, he has to do all of that work, right? And then it starts all over again. He wakes up, he's tired, and he hasn't got much sleep because his mum had a bad night. So that's what we mean by a carer. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, we can move on. Okay, so back to the research. So what I wanted to do was think about lots of different types of framing, if you like, for my research. So I wanted to think about mindfulness, because this really means paying attention in a particular way, so that you're there on purpose, in the present moment, and it's non-judgmental. And also that if we're not present in each moment, because we're rushing all the time, I'm really guilty of this. This is why mindfulness is a great concept for me. Because then we miss what's going to be the most valuable things in our lives, and that we fail to realise the richness and the depth of our possibilities for growth and transformation. Now, I love this because I find it so hard, because I want to rush and get to the next thing. So the other thing, and I've been introduced, I've sort of heard of Ubuntu before, and I'm sure that some of you will have done too, is about being a person. A person is a person through other people. There's a phrase that they use about Ubuntu. So I'm just going to try, let's see if it works, to play this.
and he didn't have to ask for food or for water. Once he stops, the people give him food, entertain him. That is one aspect of Ubuntu. I think we have various aspects. Ubuntu does not mean that people should not address themselves. The question, therefore, is, are you going to do so in order to enable the community around you and be able to improve? These are the important things in life. And if one can do that, you have done something very important to be appreciated.
So hopefully you can hear just a little bit of that. So the idea of Ubuntu is really that you're there with your community and that you're really putting things into your community and the community is putting things into you. Again, this is something just I was looking through the ARNA clips, and I thought this was really nice because the great thing about ARNA is that we're kind of getting all these different communities together and talking about what's important to them. So I've never met Camilio. I hope I'll meet him while I'm here. But he's a Masters of Education student, like I am. I'm currently studying my Masters, but not in Columbia, unfortunately. I'm studying in the UK, but he was just saying what he is really excited about in ARNA. So again, hopefully you'll just be able to hear
Greetings
this.
from the South. On behalf of every Latin American teacher and student, we salute the inaugural conference of ARNA. Action research is more than necessary in countries like ours, Colombia, where peace and reconciliation are needed, and in regions like Latin America, where education has been underrated. Action research also belongs to us. Brazilian Paulo Freire, with his pedagogy of freedom, has become an essential point of reference in education and equity. We, therefore, feel happy and delighted to greet this conference and wish it may establish itself as a starting point to enhance freedom, love, and peace throughout the world. Because as Freire said, it's in making decisions that we learn to decide. Saludos desde el sur.
So isn't that a great invite to this first conference of ARNA? So that was freedom, love, and hope. So I'm really, I love that. That's such a great start to a conference. If we could have that as our hope and our desires, that's something I'm really hoping for. So I'm also trying to use a sort of storytelling about my own story and also about storying other people. I was really keen to have that as an idea, and I've really tried to use some video with that for me. It hasn't always worked when I'm doing it with other people because some people really don't like the video. I've got the video on today, so I'm looking forward to seeing that afterwards. But what it has helped me to do is, what I took with this particular bit of research was I took it the next step. So instead of just recording and videoing my current research, I went back and started checking if my memories of childhood were being validated. And it's so great, I'm going to show you later. I went back to my family and said to them, do I remember this, or have I got this really idealised idea of me as a child? And then we were able to validate whether or not where I felt my values came from was true. And also, that helped me to develop another perspective of what my childhood was like by seeing it through my parents' eyes, which was really great. So this is my mum, and so I was fostered when I was 3.5. My parents both have schizophrenia and drug addiction. My mum's still alive. Sadly, my dad passed away about 8 years ago. So I was put into a foster family at age 3.5, and this is my foster mum, Jo, and my mum. I'm just going to call her my mum, and my dad's filming. But I love this still because I felt it really showed. We finished the conversation, we look up and we look at my dad, and I hope you can see, and I checked with my mum and she felt she could see this real love. Like, we're both looking at my dad, we're really pleased with our conversation, and there's this massive amount of love in the room. And to me, I was so blessed because I was loved in every respect. I was loved by my foster family, I was loved by my real family who didn't have the capacity to love me in the way that they could bring me up, but they continued to love me even though they weren't able to do that. So I had a whole lot of love in my life, which was really great. So when we talked through the video, my mum affirmed some things for me. So she talked about the fact that that she had some values as well, and they came through her mum, who really respected and listened, paid attention and valued children's views. And that's my mum's words. So they read through this before I agreed to have this in the presentation, and they said, yeah, everything you said about your childhood is right. We didn't really understand the rest of your paper, but go ahead. So my mum had this really great role model that gave her these values, and she then reflected those values to me. So I was listened to, she paid attention to me, and she valued and respected my views, which was great. But she also said that I was pretty lucky. Like most of my social workers were always careful to listen to and seek my views. So I had this other experience of professionals. I had loads of professionals coming into my life, like all the time, but that they actually sought out my views and listened to me. So I had this experience that adults should listen to me as a child. And I expected that, and I told them. And Mum agreed with me that she confirmed that I had lots of opinions about things as a child, and that I was confident to articulate these. So that wasn't me just hoping that I did that, I actually did that as a child. So, this is just the end of our conversation. It doesn't really matter about the words. We're just kind of finishing up saying, yeah, you did those things, and that was really important, and I managed to say things. You can kind of see that we're in thinking mode at this point. And then we're just about to kind of conclude, and hopefully you'll just see that the embodied expression of our kind of our love for each other as we're talking. So I'll just let it play out. So we just look at each other, and then we look at my dad, and isn't that just really beautiful? I really like this. And then she just says, I hope you find some things out there that are helpful. Well, it really did. I really was able to see our love for each other. And this is my real mum, so my biological mum. And this was a trip that we did in Spain. She loves to feed the pigeons and the birds. And, you know, you can kind of see that there's a bit more sadness there. There's a bit more illness and difficulty. But we had a really lovely time. This was a time when she was well. And we had an amazing time in Seville with seeing my brother, her son as well. And even though it's harder and I haven't been able to have a videoed conversation with Mum because of her illness, I wanted to still bring her into this because in her own way she loves me and she values me, she listens to me and she supports me in the way she can in her capacity, because she has a lot less capacity to do that. So I wanted to talk about love and bring this in. I've got no idea what time it is. And I wanted to talk about love in research because this has been a kind of tricky thing for me because you've got these boundaries and we're not meant to love the people that we work with, we're meant to have them separate, but somehow we love what we do and we love the people we work for, but we don't want to talk about it in research. And I thought, why is that? I thought it's because in English we've got this one word, love, and it covers everything. You know, I love my partner, I love my, I love my phone. What does love mean? It's this massive range. But in other languages, they have all these other words, and I think that's really helpful. So in agape, it's a Greek word, and it means an intentional response to promote well-being when responding to that which has generated ill-being. Now that I don't feel funny about saying about the people I work for that I love them in this way. Of course I love them to promote them into well-being and to make better the things that are ill-being in them. So that feels better. And then I looked at some other ideas. So, and I'm really sorry if people know how to pronounce this, but it's karuna. But it's a compassion which makes the heart of the good move at the pain of the other. So this is the Buddha said this. And I thought, yeah, that's okay. I can talk about love in that respect, that I want to make something better in the other. And metta, or metri, sorry, I still don't know how to say it, is loving kindness, friendliness, benevolence, amity, friendship, goodwill, kindness, being on the same mental same wavelength, and an active interest in the other. Again, I don't feel scared about saying that in terms of the people that I work for. And then I went to a really great presentation in ARNA, and I was able to see this that PEC in in the Road Less Travelled talked about the will to extend oneself for the purpose of one's own or another's spiritual growth. And that spiritual growth, they were meaning to be the term spiritual growth according to the definition of Bell Hooks, which provides one who seeks to know and live according to the values that promote universal well-being. So, and Liz and Kathy are here, and I went to go and see their presentation, and that was really great. But again, that's a kind of love that's not so scary to talk about in terms of research, in terms of the people we work with. So what I found is that as I've been researching, I've really found that as we bring that kind of love, that kind of love into our research, that we have this kind of amazing pooling of energy, dynamic energy that makes us really want to research together and to really pull all that all that we're doing together. We come together in a collaborative group, and the kind of, you can't quite see it in this, but there's lots of colours in that drawing. So I drew this when I was 18, and now I've come back to it as I've looked back at how I described things, and I call this a conscious conversation. Lots of people coming together, and a pooling of energy in the middle with some really bright dynamic colours, and it can really pull together your ideas. And I really felt this represented action research when you're coming together in a collaborative group. So, and that actually, when we bring some video into this, what I've found is that I've really been able to change the knowledge, the nature of knowledge itself, because I've been able to go back and review and see what's happening in the video. So it's not just a tool, it doesn't just record what's happening, but it also has the embodied expression of things that are happening. And you're able to look at it on so many different levels and keep learning and keep going back. So video's been a great tool for me. So this is just a still. I won't play this video because I'm sure I'm out of time. Oh, I'm not out of time. Yeah. Okay. So this is Rosie. So she's a carer. She cares for her husband, Den. He has Alzheimer's. Do you call it that here? Yeah, Alzheimer's, dementia. She's lost her husband before he's died. That's how I would describe somebody with Alzheimer's. He can't really remember her. He is there, but he's not there. It's not him anymore. And Rose has gone through this period of bereavement around losing her husband before it's time, really. And also seeing him become something that he would have hated to be, you know, somebody who doesn't really know what's going on, somebody who, it's just, you know, he can't look after his own appearance. He was a very sort of proud man and would not have wanted to be in that scenario. So that's been a really tough time. And Rosie talks about it being completely 24/7 looking after somebody with dementia. You don't know if they're going to wander, if they're going to leave, if they know what they're doing. She had this awful time when her husband did wander and she didn't know if he was dead or alive. You know, so you've always got to be on your guard with somebody with dementia. And so, you know, she comes from this awful scenario of caring, but you would not know that from this picture. We're just having this great conversation, and she's talking about me as a leader at the carer centre that I work at. And I'll pull out some of the things that she says in a minute, but I wanted to give that backstory because it gives a really, you know, we don't know what's happening with people, but when we bring out their story, it gives them so many more dimensions. So Rosie, when she was with, when her husband was well, she's got her own business and she's a very successful lady. She's an incredible lady actually, and she's been great to work with and to be part of the organisation that we support her, but she wanted to support us back. So she's become a trustee as well, which is great. She's very challenging, but she's really supportive, and so I've been able to have that input. So I've asked, in this conversation, I asked her to be part of my research and talk about me as an authentic leader. Did she see me as an authentic leader, and how would she describe that? Or something like that. That probably wasn't the exact, it was more of a conversation, so I might not have started with something quite as concrete as that question. But you can watch the whole video, I've got a link in the paper to it. So one of the things she said, because you're a carer yourself, the empathy is naturally there. So you saw my mum before and went to Seville with her, and I am a carer. It took me a long time to realise that, because I don't live with my mum. She lives about 2 hours drive away from me. And when I'm caring for her the most, it feels the most home caring time, because it means she's ill, and she's usually, well, I won't say what she says to me because it would be not appropriate for this context, but she gets very angry, and she's very clear to tell me what she, the negative things she thinks about me, and that she doesn't want me to be in her life, and all of those types of things. Luckily, she has a great team, and we've overcome some of the issues of confidentiality within that caring role, because when she's well, she sees me as a very fundamental part of her life, and she wants me to be involved. So when she's unwell and she's saying she doesn't want me around, the team still talk to me and we still work together, because that's a really important time. So I really understand those tensions of caring. Carer, caregiver, it can be a really bad word because it doesn't always feel like you're caring. So this has been a really important thing for us to explore in our research around, what does it mean to be a carer? How does that feel? And part of our research group has been a very supportive group around exploring issues of caring, as well as the issues that we're trying to look at about authentic leadership, about also about moving things on for carers, making differences in their lives. It's also about what does it mean to be a carer and our stories. So, and then that really gives me this authenticity that I'm actually being able to empathise with carers because I'm a carer myself. I don't think that means to be a really great authentic leader. You have to walk in the shoes of the people that you walk with, but it's definitely given an extra element for my authenticity as a leader. So Rosie really picked out that I empower carers to become spokespeople, and you can see their confidence grow. And that's really great, because one of my values is that I really wanted to make sure that I have a value of participation, so that I'm actually enabling people to get involved and to be their own voice. And the fact that she was able to pull out from my work that she felt that I empower carers to become spokespeople and see their confidence grow, that was really great, because she was seeing my values in practice. So I felt that I was really able to look at my living experience of being a leader as actually living my values in practice, which was great. She could pick that out, and you can again see this in the video. And also that she felt that I was very inclusive of everybody. Now that's great again, because out of my sort of values of love and of participation, I really wanted to be an inclusive leader that didn't kind of leave people out. Now, I think that's really challenging, and we all would like that, I think, but it's very difficult to do. But I was glad she could see it, so that was really great from the video. So I'm going to talk about living contradictions. Before I come on to those, I'm just going to say there are lots of other bits of video. I haven't gone through them all. I just picked out the one of Rosie. So there's not enough time to go through them all, because I'm getting told my time. I also talked to my staff. I talked to other volunteers and trustees of the organisation, really talk to everybody that's involved in the organisation to check out, am I being an authentic leader, and can they really see me living my values in practice? That was really important to get in my research the voices of everybody involved, because that is my values are that everybody would be able to participate and to improve the situation that they're in, to improve the organisation I run, and that if I'm being an authentic leader, how can I know if I'm an authentic leader unless I go back and ask each of them? And that's an ongoing part of my research, is to keep going back to different people in the organisation, having video conversations when they're happy about that, not having video conversations where they don't want the video to be there. And also to do the bits of research with them about how do we not just improve the practice of the centre, but how do we improve the practice of other professionals. So there's a really great bit in the paper about how we're improving the practice of social work students and making sure that they're living their values fully and that they really understand what carers are. But very quickly, I'll just talk about living contradictions, because this is such a great concept, and this is the kind of real release. This is where you go, I want to live my values here, but sometimes I don't live them fully. And we call that a living contradiction. It's an idea of Jack Whitehead's, and Billy Barry talks about it as well in his research he was looking at. And it's really this idea that we always want to live our values, but we often find ourselves contradicting our own values and not really living them as fully as we'd like. And so what we can then learn is, well, where we're not living our values fully, what is happening in that situation? And how can we improve our practice? And as always, you learn so much more from when you're not doing it the best way, and you get feedback, and when you get criticism and complaints from the people that you're working with, or your staff, or volunteers, or trustees in my situation, that's when I really learn the most. It's the hardest thing because you really come up against the fact that you're not living your values fully, and you want everybody to be included, you want everyone's voice to be heard, you want everybody to feel that they're loved in those contexts that I talked about love. So you want things to be improving for people. But sometimes you just don't achieve it, and the real way of learning that is to go and ask people when I'm not, or when they tell you, they're coming with a complaint, and then not to look at that and feel defensive, but to open up and to really say, okay, how can I improve my practice from what you're saying? I'm clearly not living my values fully. Let's work together to improve what we're doing and to take things forward. So I love living contradiction. It's something that really helps. So that's the end of my presentation. I've got some of my other papers here. So the key thing is go to actionresearch.net. There's loads of brilliant research on there. Loads of brilliant writing, so even if you don't come across mine, you'll come across somebody else's that's fantastic. But if you want to look for me, those are my particular, that's how you get to them. And also, Jack Whitehead, who runs the research, actionresearch.net, is going to put this paper up. So you can read specifically about this paper. I haven't got the URL yet.
It'll be in the What's New section, so as soon as you get into it, you'll be able to access it in the What's New section.
Yeah, because this is brand new. And the other thing I would say is that, do get in contact with Jack. Jack's here today, so you can just speak to him. But it's a really great way of making your research publicly available. And I really feel that that's one of the key things about moving this from just being me, improving my practice, and making my centre better. That's great for my centre and for the carers I work with and my staff and everything else. But I really want to have influence beyond my work situation and taking this, and that's why it's great to be at ARNA, because that doesn't mean that I've just improved what I'm doing, but hopefully you'll have learned something from this, or you'll go and read the paper and you'll take some of these concepts and you'll build on my research to take your research to the next level. And then this is how we can really pull together our energies, taking forward all of our research. And so it's just great to be here and share my learning with you. Thank you very much.
So we have about 10 minutes left for questions of any of the...
To improve,
Thank you.
I have a question for Jeannie. Has your work led to any other
Judge of what is good and determining the action in the authentic leader stance. So, who would be the arbiter to decide? Yes, you are an authentic leader versus no, you are not because your values are not good.
Okay, so you mean like for other to extend it and go beyond? Well, I think for me it's entwined in being part of a kind of a validation group, really, who can kind of check you out and make sure that that they're, so it's not always just you internally deciding, but it's about having other people that are able to validate what you're saying, and also to kind of question whether or not that is for the good of humanity, and really being able to make that wider and then sharing it beyond, so that you're opening up to criticism and opening up to and actually it's kind of easy to open up to your criticism because you don't really know me. The harder critics are my organisation, the people I work to support, so the carers, my staff, and taking their criticism, so that I'm constantly going back and revisiting and then adjusting and improving my practice from from the criticism that I get from a wider audience, but even more crucially from those people who know me really well and who I'm meant to be benefiting. And so checking out that it is actually benefiting and improving their situation.
Okay, I think for me, you hit it, you said it well in terms of being able to take the criticism. A person who is not authentic cannot take the criticism and in turn criticizes the criticizer.
Yeah,
So,
it's that defensiveness, right? And we
Yeah.
see it all the time. And I think, well, certainly in Britain, most public organisations are set up with a defensive nature. So I think it's a lot to do with the legend, being worried about being sued. But a lot of it is you can't say, you're right, I did that wasn't good, and now I want to learn about how I can do it better. Because we say, no, I didn't do anything wrong, it's going to go to court if I say anything happened here that wasn't right. And that is completely breaking down any cycle of learning and improving the leadership, which is constantly, in the UK anyway, comes up over and over again. There were problems with the leadership of this organisation. So to me, we have to get over this defensive attitude and be able to hold my hands up. I can't, however good I am as a leader, I am never going to get it right all of the time. The only way I can get it right ongoing is to say, it didn't go right, how can I make it better? Let's get it better. Oh, it didn't go right again, let's make it better, and keep going. And if I can then share that beyond myself, hopefully other leaders can learn about it's okay to open up. And that actually what doesn't happen when I open myself up to criticism is then I don't get completely hounded out of my position, that actually people really appreciate that I'm opening myself up to criticism, and then there's some healing that goes on, because obviously people get hurt when you get it wrong, and so we can then heal it and we can work together to get it right, and then we move on and we go through those cycles. And hopefully other leaders can look at my research and say, wow, okay, that is brave, but it's something I really want to try and achieve and improve my practice that way too.
okay, all right, thank you. I don't remember the question now.
Oh, sorry.
I'll think about it. And then for you, have you both?
Yeah, so because we've done this kind of work too, where we record things and look back. And Kathy and I were just talking about this recently. But when I watched you watch that video, did you see it?
No, I was
Your face just lit up, and you talk about pulling energy, and I could kind of feel it happening because you were in our presentation the other day, and we felt that. And then here I was like, oh, I recognize that, and I saw your face just come to life, and with the recollection of the conversation with your mom, and it just resonated right off of you.
Yeah.
Your whole presentation was interesting, but I really liked that.
Yeah. And I think, that's why having the video is really important, because, it's not just the video of my mum and me talking, or the video of me talking with my the carers I work with, or the staff I work with, or the volunteers, but then it's, if you then video your response to the video, you get this next level, and so you can kind of keep expanding on what how the videos you're learning in the video is and what responses you have, and so then that takes you to the next bit of your research, because then you build on to the next bit of the research, and you've got this kind of record that goes all the way through. And so the times that I regret the most are the times that the video wasn't on, because then you haven't got it and you can't go back to it, and you when you felt something, when you have that moment of, this is really important and it's really kind of key to my research. But when you've got it on video, it's there, and when you don't have it on video, you're like, that would have been really great to have on video and take to the next bit of the research. So it just takes a bit of a while to get over being videoed and having to watch yourself on video. But once you're over it, it's really good.
The question I had had to do